Well, happy December, everybody. It's a couple of weeks before Christmas, and the world is continues to be an interesting and wonderful place to experience new things. So, I've given some thought a lot to Christmas in regard to the experience that many people are having, probably have had forever, but I know for sure are having right now. Christmas is a season which makes people think about family, and sometimes it gets them excited and looking forward to all those types of exchanges. But on the flip side, Christmas is also a time when there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of people who are missing people that they uh, had in their life and technically still have, but there's distance. And there's also emotional problems which keep people from each other. And oftentimes these can be things that are, we don't know precisely what to do, but we wish we could do something. And so today I'm going to share with you a concept that I had that deals with a famous story. And the idea behind that is maybe you'll be able to see yourself in your situation and bring yourself some clarity as to things that may be presenting to you or things that you are waiting to unfold. So, the prodigal son. So, the prodigal son is a very famous story. It's biblical, and it's simply distilled down like this. We have a story of a rich landowner, a father. He has two sons. One of the sons is very industrious and hardworking and diligent. The other son, not so much so. Hard to get him to work. A little bit lazy, and ultimately, after a period of stressing, as the boy reaches the age of adulthood, instead of figuring things out and becoming a productive adult, he decides to play the trump card of taking his inheritance and leaving. And without any resistance, the father does that, and the son goes off. And true to form, based on his life up to that point, he goes out and squanders his resources, partying, living the life of Riley, and ultimately being in a situation where he has squandered and wasted everything, and he's penniless and destitute. He then thinks about the home he used to have, and how his father, as a gracious man, even his lowest servant, is living better than him. So he collects up his things, goes home. And of course, the father is delighted to see him. And the son initially comes in and says, "Father, I've blown everything up here. I'm not worthy to be your son. What can I work for you or something?" And the father says, "No, nonsense. You've learned a valuable lesson here." And he exalts him, brings him back into the fold, and now they have in the midst of that all, the brother who is there is actually upset. He's upset that his brother, who had gone and squandered everything and had just basically ruined his inheritance, has come back and is welcomed with open arms in a way he doesn't understand. And the lesson for the brother is that it doesn't matter the journey you take towards becoming the best version of yourself. It is the fact that you get there. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about those three characters, and maybe you'll see yourself in all of these characters, or maybe as one. So let's do that. So, the prodigal son. Here we have a young man who, we don't know whether he was born into this opulence, but we do know when the story opens that the father is rich and has many lands and is very productive. And, we can only fathom that there's a little bit of friction in the household, as we have one brother who's very productive and the other brother, the prodigal son, who is just, for whatever reason, maybe he feels entitled, maybe he's personally weak, maybe farm work doesn't interest him. We don't know. But the point is that it's funny when you are in a situation, you can a lot of parents will attest to times when children go away. Oftentimes, children or friends will go away because in that moment, you become incompatible, meaning that that son was actually incompatible with the father. He was incompatible with the responsibility of the relationship. He was incompatible with the responsibility to himself. And the proof of that is that he then took his inheritance, and which was a rite of passage, because quite frankly, it was actually a smart move on his part if he was going to maintain that life. Because quite frankly, the father likely would have removed him from the household. So before he does that, he plays his inheritance card and receives the money. And to give you perspective, I mean, look around here. The average farm's a couple $1,000,000. You got two sons, and the deal is you split it up. This kid could be leaving with $500,000 to $1,000,000 in equivalent money, which could go a long way if you were going to be prudent. But up until this point, he has not been prudent. And so the son leaves and goes off, and hey, it's interesting to note he doesn't stay in the same town because he goes to another country. And the reason he goes to another country is he doesn't want people to see what he's up to. And because in his heart of hearts, he knows that the path he is following is not going to work out. And maybe more on an instinctual level versus a cognizant level. Because let's face it, showing up in town with a billfold full of money, you get instant friends. Wine, women, song, drugs, if that was a thing, get rich quick schemes. Everybody wants a piece of you, and they're happy to take that piece and not put anything back. And you see this example in our society time and time again, from celebrities to the children of celebrities to wealthy people who get inheritances and squander them immediately. At the end of the day, it comes down to a scarcity mindset. It's a scarcity mindset that you have to find your satisfaction in external things versus in the qualities of being productive, good, and actually investing in your relationships and versus running away from them. And so, he is destitute. Middle of the story, he's so destitute he sneaks into barns to eat with the pigs, and he's dressed in rags. And at his lowest of the low, because you must understand, he doesn't become destitute and then immediately turn around and have a change of mind. It forces him to reflect very deeply on the circumstance. And he realizes that his father is universally a very kind man. Not just his father, but a kind man, because even the lowest servant in his household does better than what he's doing in that moment, eating with the pigs. And so, has he learned his lesson? We don't know, but he does decide to go back to his father. And one of the ways we could learn that he may have learned his lesson is he says to the father, I'm not worthy enough to become your son again, when he arrives. And the father is happy to see him, because you must understand there is no communication. There is just here today, gone tomorrow, back again. The father has had no idea what's gone on with his son. And he sees his son in this desolate strait, and he actually knew this would be the outcome for his son. But we'll talk about his bigger views of things in a moment. But the point is, the son has shown up, and the father, instead of denigrating him and making him a lower slave, or not even paying attention to him, puts a ring on his finger, gives him a robe, has a party. Hallelujah, my son has returned and has learned his lesson. An interesting note, though, is that the big brother is very upset, because the big brother has watched his younger brother squander everything. And he actually wants the same thing that the younger brother wants, or feels that all he deserves, and that is to be lowest of the low and not be exalted. But again, the father showcases his wisdom and brings the son back in, recognizing that the lesson has indeed been learned. So you might see yourself in the prodigal son. You might see yourself in the people around you. You may have had family that has separated from each other for various reasons, maybe disagreements. Really, at the end of the day, a lot of separations are for ridiculously stupid reasons. When you look at it objectively on the scale of life. So you may see yourself in that situation. You may see yourself going through a time where things aren't going your way. Maybe not everything, but maybe there are aspects that you're just like very upset that you can't make things go your way, and you may be going through a situation where you're learning a lesson. And or again, you may have an estranged family member that you know that is the deal for them as well. And they don't have to become destitute like the prodigal son. Really, we never know what's going on inside people's own experiences. We just know that there always comes a time when people remember those. There's an expression that you need the people most you knew when you were young, and that's because they remember the version of you that was not tainted by the cravings and the trappings of the world. And so as you pull towards the Christmas season, if you have family members who reach out who say, hey, they may not say, hey, let's patch things up. They may just reach out. And it is how you receive them. If you have been holding them in your prayers, it is how you receive them, which directly relates to the finality of their lesson. Because make no mistake, if the prodigal son had been received by his father and his father had been cruel and mean to him, that would have been a devastating blow for the son, and he would feel like would have nothing to live for. And there is no point making a recipe and cooking it without then enjoying the fruits of that process. And it was a process for the prodigal son. And so my encouragement is that if you have someone in your life who you recognize aspects of that, don't be a hard ass. If they show up, be reasonable. Don't be a pushover, but be reasonable. Because that is, as you've seen in my other videos, we are all in this together. And because we're all in this together, we have a responsibility to each other to help each other grow and become better people. So that's the prodigal son. Like I said, you may see yourself there, you may see other people's in your family, but let's take a look at the brother. So the brother, in that household, the brother, his whole life, he's one of those guys who was able to learn his lessons early on and learn the lessons not necessarily through his own experience, but what he observed. For example, a cow wanders off too far and gets eaten by the wolves. He knows, oh gee, I better focus and stay true to the group here so that we can be successful. Maybe a farmer has a cycle of harvesting, and maybe some years are leaner than others. The experience of that would show you that it is wise to have some resources in the bank, be it money or any other kind of resources, to prepare for the future. These are two lessons that the prodigal son never learned. He never learned the value of maintaining the solidity of his family relationship, and he never learned the value of preparing for the future. But one of the lessons that brother did not learn and had to learn when the brother returned, the prodigal son, is the value of mercy. You see, when the brother went and got his inheritance, and you have to understand that he probably was not very happy about that, because it would have taken away resources from the farm. But what could he do? That's the deal. And all the time the brother was gone, the prodigal son, he would have been in a situation where he's working diligently. I'm sure he thought about his brother every day, but there would have been radio silence, and he would have had many feelings of longing, but then also feelings of judgment. But ultimately, when that brother reappears, it is judgment that takes pole position in his mind, because he's like, what's going on here? Why are we exalting this person who has proven that they've done nothing to deserve being exalted? And make no mistake, if that brother had shown up and been like, "Hey, Dad, back in town, can you do me a solid and reinstall me as your son?" Of course, that would prove that no lesson was learned. But because the son came with meekness and humility, the father was able to, help the other son learn the lesson that it is in the mercy that we give those people around us, that especially after they have learned a lesson, that we help them become the greatest that they can be. And it's a wonderful thing. So again, you may see yourself in the brother. You may see yourself as a highly productive, conscientious person, but you may be filled with judgment. You may be filled with judgment even to the point that you don't even want to consider the reasons why you should extend mercy. Because mercy is something you can extend to everyone. And it should be something that is a tool in your box. You don't extend mercy because mercy is a resource. So you don't just extend mercy like you're throwing money around the room, but you extend mercy in an observable way to those people who have learned the lesson. The lesson, you may have known that they were in the process of learning that lesson, but don't ever be like the parent who, or parent person otherwise, who is never satisfied. Moving the goalposts, you say, oh, well, you've got to be conscientious in this area, and then someone abides by that, and then you change the rules. Always strive never to be that person, because you actually destroy yourself when you do that. You destroy opportunity, and you destroy, if you're in a situation in your life where you're operating from a place of judgment, and life will continue to give you the same scenario over and over again until you learn your lesson, and you'll have a lot of frustration. And but those people around you who love you, they will be waiting for you to learn the lesson, and they will be in a place where there is no judgment, there is only love. So you may see yourself in the brother. And lastly, we have the father. Now let's take a look at the father for a minute. Now this man is clearly an industrious fellow. We don't know if they were rich when the children were born, but the point is, at that time in the world, in antiquity, becoming a wealthy landowner would have been a challenge. And he did so. So clearly he's conscientious and hardworking and smart and diligent. And we see several aspects of the father in as much as when we view the whole story. Meaning that, so of course in the early years when the prodigal son is at home, there would have been family issues. There would have been, challenges and complaints around making it so that son, how parents are, the lectures of the children, etc., etc. But as that son grew older, the father knew lectures are kind of like, there's an old Springsteen song that has a line, like a dog that's been beat too much. And when you have one too many lectures with anyone, it comes to the point that they don't hear anymore. They're just going to do what they're going to do. And ultimately that father likely got to that point with his son where he knew he was going to do what he was going to do. And so he, when that son came to him and said, "Hey, Dad, I want my money. I'm leaving town," I am sure that father was not happy about the prospect, because he knew precisely what was going to happen. And based on the sensibilities and observations he had seen in his son. But at this, and you know what? It would have been a terrifying thing for a father, because he also would have known that the path the son was about to walk down could very well cost him his life. But because he believed, clearly the father believes in the larger blessing of being in this world where God is overseeing everything, he gives him his inheritance and his blessing, and the son goes. And you must appreciate, we don't know how long the son is gone, but it's probably at least a year. There are no cell phones. There is no email. There are no telephone calls. Maybe there's messengers. I don't know. But you can right well imagine that the son would not be in a hurry to advise everyone back at home about the state he was in or the decline that he was in. Because when you're busy partying, the last thing on your mind is to write, hey, how's it going letter. And, and so all the time the son is gone, all the father can do is focus on the good things. He focusing on his other son, focusing, clearly he's a charitable man, so he probably is very valuable in his community. But you'll find that a lot of people who are industrious and high quality people, they have stories that will break your heart. But they're not trying to manipulate or control them. They're simply sitting back, saying to the people that they love in a ethereal way, more or less just, oftentimes we all talk to each other in our minds and hoping that the best outcome turns around. And you can right well imagine the day that the son shows up. Who knows? Was the father gardening? Was he busy sitting on his porch? Was he, I'm sure he was busy doing something. And the son appears, maybe walking down the road, highly disheveled, maybe tripping a little bit, maybe limping, maybe he's got some health condition. The point is, he looks really taken aback and well worn. And much like any parent would do, in that moment, that father had a couple of choices. He could immediately be hard-nosed and say, "Oh, look what the cat drug in," or he could be like, "Hey, what are you doing here? You left. Get out of here," because he didn't abide by his vision of what he thought his son's life should be. Those are two choices he could have made. But the choice he did make was like, "Oh, my son, you've returned. How wonderful. How wonderful, my son." It brings me to tears a little bit because I myself have children. And I hope I never have to be in a situation where I'm faced with that circumstance. But I have people in my life who I feel the same way about. And when they walk up that road, it's a flood of emotions, but they're all good. You have to give me a second. In any case, the son comes in, and the father hears his son say, he says, "Dad, I have screwed up. I have wasted, wrecked, ruined everything. I do not deserve to be your son." And the father says, No, I can see that you have learned your lesson." And he puts a ring in his finger and gives him a robe. And, really elevates him back up. Does he give him more money? I don't think so. But he elevates him back up to help him get back on his feet. Maybe he'll help him, reestablish himself in whatever career he chooses. But the point is that he helps him to regain some self-respect. And even more so when the other brother comes in and says, "Hey, what's going on here? Why does he get to be exalted after he's wrecked everything?" The father's greatest lesson to that son is to show the mercy. And mercy has to always be a tool that's in your arsenal, not to enable, because make no mistake, if the next day after that whole party and things, the son was laying on the couch and reverting to his old ways, I am very sure, based on what we see about this father, that he would not be in a situation where he's like, "No, I'm just going to let him do that." We don't know precisely how that would measure, and that's why it's important as a parent. You have to have whether you're a parent, whether you have friends, anyone in your life, you have to have a certain number of boundaries around where you don't allow them to abuse you, but at the same time, you have to be in a situation where you allow them to learn their lesson. And with your gentle, strong hand waiting in the background to help them up when they ultimately do learn that lesson. So yeah, these are the three characters in the prodigal son. And you may see elements of yourself in all of them. By no means am I expecting anyone to say that, to acknowledge that they're terribly responsible or terribly merciful or terribly judgmental. But you may see yourself in all these areas. So as we pull towards Christmas and you reflect upon your family, you reflect upon the different challenges people have, always sit back and understand that we are all on a journey together. And we have, there are those of us who have an understanding of each other, and it is through time that it's one thing to have one person understand you. It's quite another thing to have two people who understand each other and they know it. So as we pull towards Christmas, take this lesson and have a good one. I may do another one before Christmas, but I'm doing this with enough notice that as you're making your Christmas dinner guest lists and you're thinking about the people you're going to interact with, and you're thinking about what your world is going to look like over the holiday season and how you're going to interact with people, that you treat kindly and treat lovingly those people who are in your space, those people who are gone and you don't know what they're up to, and those people for whom you love very dearly and are knowing that they are in a process of coming back to you. Merry Christmas, everyone.